Hi, everyone. My name is Becky Page, and I'm excited about this conversation that we're about to have, not only because I firmly believe so much in what we're talking about today, but also because I'm sitting here with two really good friends who are in different parts of the country, and I'm more than anything just excited for them to share their stories with you. We wanted to talk to you about hormones today, specifically regarding things like inflammation, your gut health, and definitely the important piece of nutrition. What we want to talk about is finding balance in life and in health, and even discovering like basic definitions to hormones, finding holistic solutions. But more than anything, our biggest intent is to share stories so that you know you're not alone and so that you know there is hope. I do want to start with a disclaimer that the FDA has not examined the products that we'll be discussing tonight, and we're not attempting to diagnose, treat, or cure, and neither are these products. Our biggest intent is just to educate you and to share stories with you. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to one of my very best friends. We have been friends since college at Texas Tech University. And she has been a business partner, a mentor, a sister. We've been through so much together, and she has an exceptional testimony when it comes to hormones. So I want to introduce you to my friend, Rachael Neagle. Rachael, take it away.
Hi. I'm really excited to be a part of today's call because this is really something that I am absolutely and truly passionate about. And like most people, your passion is born out of circumstance. And so my passion for hormone health, for helping people find what I like to call hormone harmony, stems from my experience with what I unaffectionately refer to as my own personal hormone hell. My health issues, if we want to put those in quotes, began pretty early on in my 20s. I have, unfortunately, a background of childhood trauma, which if you know and you understand about anything about children who come from trauma, you're almost predisposed to having issues related to your fight or flight system. It's very easy for your body just to automatically perceive any kind of crisis or situation that feels uncomfortable as like you hyper escalate it. And that's definitely something that I can look back and see through my teen years and my early 20s. I really began to notice that I started to have, like so many women, that I was having issues with my hormones once we started to try to conceive. We fell into that category of undiagnosed infertility. All your tests look normal. Everything looks fine. We can't really figure out a way. And so, of course, the solution, at least in a traditional medical setting, is to then start doing things to tweak, adjust, manipulate your hormones so that your body is producing more eggs so that you can get pregnant. So, continue on that journey. What I didn't realize at the time is that there were a lot of other symptoms that I was having that I never would have correlated with a hormone issue. I was experiencing insomnia. I was grinding and clenching my teeth at night to the point that I was developing neuropathic pain in my mouth. The solution to that was, well, let's try to put you on some antidepressants that help with nerve pain. So really, we were chasing symptoms, and strangely enough, when the pieces of everything started to fall together for me, was I had a friend who was selling a makeup and skincare line at the time, and she asked me to host a party for her. And so I did that, always do that for your friends, by the way. And she mentioned a progesterone cream. Well, I had never heard of progesterone. And even through all of the fertility stuff that I had gone through, I had never heard about progesterone. But she'd said, she read from a book, it could help with clenching your teeth at night. So, man, I started rubbing that stuff on me. And yes, I stopped clenching my teeth. I also got pregnant. And it was like, oh my gosh, after how many years and rounds of, IUI and all of that, had a wonderful, amazing pregnancy. And of course, you just think you're so happy to have that baby and everything's going to be great, that never once did I set myself up or understand that massive change in hormones that was going to happen after I had that baby. And so I had this baby. I loved him, but then I started experiencing all kinds of issues with fatigue, with hair falling out, with low milk supply, with extreme body aches. Probably would have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia if I'd ever let them pin a diagnosis on me. And this is really where my journey into holistic remedies or functional medicine started, because every avenue of allopathic or Western medicine was failing me. It was either we can send you to a rheumatologist, we're going to start testing you. I developed a chronic inflammatory issue in one of my eyes where they completely rejected my contacts, and I was going to have surgery to correct that. And it was like, intuitively, I knew you can't be having all of these things going on and them not be connected in some way. And so that was when I found a wonderful functional medicine doctor who set me down. He tested my thyroid. He tested my my sex hormones, so my relationship or balance between my estradiol and my progesterone. And he started looking specifically at my adrenal hormones, which are like cortisol and stuff like that. And what I ended up with was a diagnosis of I didn't have enough progesterone for somebody who wasn't pregnant, much less somebody who was trying to get pregnant. My thyroid was not functioning at all, and my cortisol, my stress hormones, were extremely high. And so I want you to think of this in terms of like if you have a stool, or like when you go out to a restaurant and your table is out of balance and it's so annoying, and so you reach for like the sugar packets or whatever to shove up under the edge so that you can kind of get the table in balance and it's not so annoying. That is really, once the way that your hormones in your body work, once one of those hormones gets out of whack, the other systems are automatically affected. And so for me, I think it probably started with my stress hormones, but that impacted my thyroid hormones, which in turn impacted my my sex hormones. So through working with that doctor, I got to what I tell people was about 85%. And from what I had been at, which I want to put this into very like I'm a visual person, this was me in the floor of my closet begging my husband to go and check me into our psychiatric hospital. Every part of my body hurt. I called Becky numerous times. I didn't want to stop breastfeeding, but I knew I probably needed to be on an antidepressant. This was not situational depression. This was severe depression that was brought on because of hormone and other issues. It was bad, y'all. It was a dark night of the soul. And so to have found this doctor that could put me on medications and put me on supplements and get me to about 85% felt amazing, right? Like, okay. But then when you've gone through something like infertility and you've dreamt of having children and you suddenly have these two beautiful babies, but you've got nothing left to give them at the end of the day. You're like, can we turn on the Disney Channel, or can you go play your iPad, or mommy, will you read this book with me? And you literally can't hold your eyes open. It was like, enough. Like, I've got to figure out the rest of this. And it was about that time that my good friend Andrea Mitchell, I started seeing her posting about plexus. And Andrea had some similar issues in her background as well with hormone problems. And it was like she was a new person. And so I set out, Becky knows I'm an avid researcher. I really set out like, okay, I'm not going to be able to take these. I automatically know I'm not going to be able to take these products. And what I really found was that, oh my gosh, this could be the missing link. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. after I want to introduce you guys to my good friend Carrie. But I mean, folks who know it's the missing link, within about a 2 to 3 week period, your husband comes to you and says, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, keep doing it because I feel like I have my wife back. And that just brought so much joy to both of our lives. I do want to turn this over now to my friend, and she's a fellow ambassador, a Ruby ambassador, Carrie Welch. We wanted Carrie to be a part of this call today because she brings a lot to the table in terms of her knowledge as a nutritional advocate. She has a bachelor's of science in dietetics, and she's going to speak to us about the need to fill nutritional gaps, and also her own testimony of discovering that she had a hormone balance she wasn't aware of.
Thank you so much, Rachel. First of all, I'm so honored to be on this call. You ladies, I respect you guys so much, and y'all both have incredible stories. So yeah, a little bit about my background in nutrition. I feel like I've worked in every realm. I've been with babies, infants, children, pregnant women, psychological problems in hospitals with people, with anorexia and things like that. I've dealt with the elderly. So I feel like I've covered every realm of nutrition. And so when I decided to stay home with my girls, I kind of felt like I was losing a little bit of value in my degree. And so Plexus landed in my lap, and it was the missing piece as far as that was concerned, so that I could bring value again to others as far as supplementation goes in the nutrition realm. So with that being said, as Rachel was saying, you can have the cleanest diet in the world. You can, have whatever your nutrition, whatever lifestyle you've chosen, you can have the cleanest diet, but you're still going to have gaps in your nutrition. My favorite course in college was micronutrients, hence my passion for Plexus, because vitamins and minerals is where my heart was, and it was where my passion was. And so you've got these gaps in the soil quality, and you've got gaps in the standard American diet, which is, in my opinion, horrible. But not everybody's perfect. I'm not perfect. So you need these supplements like probiotics and omegas and a good solid methylated multivitamin to help fill those gaps. It's the unseen things that it's hard to explain, but they all work together, and your body needs that in combination with a good diet, because you cannot out supplement a bad diet. You cannot out exercise a bad diet. You cannot out fast a bad diet. You're gonna need a good, solid diet lifestyle. So enter January, this past January, my pastor approached me about leading a study in our church. And so I kind of realized that along with my supplements, that my diet lifestyle, as clean as I thought it was, needed a little bit of tweaking. So right now I'm focusing on half my plate's vegetables and a quarter protein and a quarter starchy vegetables, with a sprinkling of fruits and berries and things like that. And so when I started that, I noticed that immediately, maybe 10 to 14 days in, I was losing weight. But I wasn't losing the fat around my belly and my hips, and even, my face right here, my arms around this area. I wasn't losing fat, but I was losing weight. So enter Metaburn. I started taking Metaburn, and when Plexus came out with Metaburn, I was so excited because I was like, I'm going to lose all this fat, and like, I don't have hormone problems. It doesn't have any, like, that's not going to affect, be an effect for me, but I'm going to lose all this fat. And so I started taking it, and I hated it. And so I started sending messages to Becky and Rachel, and I was like, guys, what in the world? this is it. I hate it. I was having major detox symptoms. And they were very encouraging. They were like, you can do this. We tweaked my, how much I was taking and, when I was taking it and how much water I was drinking and things like that. And I started slowly like noticing, hey, something's happening here. My pants started to feel a lot looser. My husband was noticing, the people that see you every day, they they notice before. I feel like he notices before I do. I'm like, no, it's just in my head. Then I started around day 30. I sent another message to them and I said, I think it's working. And then I went through another detox. And so that's when it clicked. Something was, okay, maybe this is going to work. Maybe I did have some kind of hormone issue because I did turn 40 this year. And so I was like, well, maybe I did have some kind of hormone issue that I wasn't aware of. And so around day 45, the fat started melting off. And I was like, what is this? And then I went back and I started, looking at my nutrition books and whatnot. And I was like, cortisol. I knew then that my cortisol levels had been off. And that's why the fat was just hanging on my belly, hanging on my hips and the areas, my face and whatnot. So after day 60 of taking the Metaburn, the hormone changes as far as cortisol level goes. I mean, I've lost 15 pounds, but the fat is incredible. Like my face looks different. I've had several people say, you just look different. But my face, the fat's gone, the fat around my waist, hips, all that. But I feel better too. I'm happier. I noticed that I yell a lot less with my kids. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if what hormones could have done as far as that goes, but I do know that all this together has been a missing, all the tools that went together with the good diet and the supplementation and then the hormone balance and then the adaptogens. I can't say enough about the adaptogens. I mean, it was just it was a miracle for me. And my husband is so happy to not hear me talk about my belly fat anymore. He's just like, we were worried that it was going to start, I have 2 girls. So I was worried, well, I hope they don't, take that from me and start getting the whole body image thing. And so I don't comment on my weight anymore, my fat around my belly or any of that. So anyway, I'm sold on the adaptogens and I can't say enough about them. But with that said, that's all I have as far as the nutrition.
Thank you, Carrie. I love your story. And there was 2 things that you said that I just wanted to point out too. Is one, you talked about with your background in nutrition, you really have seen all ages. And I talk a lot about how the Plexus products are important from cradle to grave. Does not matter how old you are or what sex you are, your hormones impact you. We are born with hormones. They impact us throughout our whole life, men and women. Hormone issues are not specific to women only, and they're also not specific to child age bearing women as well. In fact, if you're a human, you're going to run into some hormone issues at some point in your life. And that's one of the things that I wanted to point out. The other is the idea that the Plexus products are meant to be a tool in your tool belt. They're not meant to be the only thing. In fact, we try very hard to impress upon people that they need to take like a whole body look at themselves. Rachael, you're going to dive into that a little bit more. So I want to turn it back over to you to explain some things about hormones to us.
I think sometimes it's really hard when we say the word hormone. First of all, I think people automatically think of women And I think they automatically think of women who are like going through the change. It's like, oh, it's the only time in your life, or like PMS or something like that. And I really want to dispel that. And I'm so glad that you pointed out, hormones are something that people are going to deal with from cradle to grave. They affect men as much as they affect women. But hormones are your body's chemical messengers. They help to control every physiological process in your body. So this means that your hormones have an impact on your metabolism. They have an impact on your immune function. Obviously, for women, on your menstrual cycle and overall reproductive health. So there is a high likelihood for anyone that imbalanced hormones could be the underlying cause for other health conditions. That certainly was the case for myself. And so what I want to do is like break it down. I gave you guys that example earlier of like a stool, or that, the table that's very annoyingly unbalanced at the restaurant. And I want you to think of the 3 legs of that stool or that table as being your thyroid hormone, your sex hormones. When I talk about sex hormones, I'm talking about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, etc. And then the adrenal component. And like I said before, when one of those gets out of balance, the other ones are going to be affected, because they're going to have to either pick up the slack for one set of the hormones, or they are going to very easily become depleted. So for Carrie, something that's very interesting that I heard her say in relationship to her cortisol is that she turned 40 this year. Around the time that you're 35 years old as a woman, it can happen sooner, it can happen later, your body automatically starts to reduce the amount of progesterone that it's making. Progesterone happens to be the master hormone for cortisol. So that's what cortisol gets made from. All your hormones get made from another one. I don't want to get too technical here. But so in her case, she reaches an age where she is she's making less progesterone. If she's going through any kind of stress, which, y'all, stress is it's a spectrum. We all experience stress on a day-to-day basis. Like, oh my gosh, I'm running late to pick up the kids from school. So you're feeling stressed. So your body starts to crank out a little bit of cortisol. Carrie shared with us before the call that they've been going through a home remodeling situation that has lasted much longer than it was intended to. That's stressful. People dealing with financial issues, people dealing with chronic illnesses, people dealing with relationship problems, people with little kids in their house, people with teenagers in their house. You cannot escape stress. But if your body does not have, if you've reached this age in your life where, okay, we're naturally not going to make as much progesterone as we used to because we're not really in our childbearing years anymore, then all of a sudden we experience the stress that comes to our life, a home remodel. Well, the only way that your body has to have enough cortisol to deal with that home remodel or whatever the stressful situation is, it starts to siphon off the progesterone in order to meet the demand for cortisol. And that's when you start to see people pack on that belly fat. The fat that is stubborn, that will not move, that is on your belly, your hips, your thighs. And it doesn't matter how much you go run on the treadmill or, how much calories you restrict or you do this or that. The key ingredient that Carrie mentioned there was adaptogens. She talked about our product, Metaburn. Metaburn does exactly what its name implies. It increases your metabolism and it burns fat. But it does that in a unique way by giving your body a blend of different, it's completely and totally plant-based, but it's a different blend of adaptogenic herbs and grains that have been around for centuries and used in Chinese medicine to naturally lower the body's cortisol. And when that happens, it's like she said, it's like that 45-day mark. it just started to melt off. The other key thing that I want to point out that she mentioned that she did in terms of her diet was she started adding in making sure that her plate had at least half of it in vegetables. One of the other parts of making sure that you don't fall into this area of what we call estrogen dominance, so this is kind of the sex hormone component that I'm talking about, is when you start to have not enough progesterone, then automatically your estrogen to progesterone ratio gets off. And too much estrogen can cause problems with blood sugar, can cause problems with thyroid, can cause problems with adrenals. Again, I mentioned these are all interrelated, but simply by her adding in that additional fiber to her diet, and I'm glad she mentioned that she needed the starchy vegetables too, because those tend to be very rich in fiber. Adequate fiber is the only way that your body can safely and effectively remove excess estrogens from both your liver and from your bowels. So you've got to keep the bowels moving. We'll talk about that Plexus product that helps with that in just a minute. And then in terms of like your overall thyroid function, I think most people just don't understand that the thyroid, it's this little butterfly-shaped gland in your neck. And most people really don't know what it is. It's not something that doctors typically test in terms of a full panel. But literally every single cell in your body has a thyroid hormone receptor site for it. So your skin, your brain, your nails, your hair, your heart, your muscle, your ovaries, your uterus, your male parts, if you're a dude, all of them are impacted heavily by your thyroid. And so when we get into those periods of time, like I was mentioning before about stress, what happens is your adrenals will say, okay, we're perceiving that we are under stress. It's kind of that Paleolithic or that prehistoric man. We're going into fight or flight mode. The very first thing that we need to do is conserve energy. And so the body kind of pumps the brakes on your thyroid function. And when that happens, it slows down your metabolism. And when your metabolism slows down, you start to store excess fat. You start to experience fatigue. Your hair starts to fall out. Your nails start to get thin and break. You might experience cold hands, cold feet. A cold bottom is a very common sign. You may lose the outer third of your eyebrows. You might start to lose hair. Basically, it's going to go, if your body's saying we're going to go in and we're going to preserve the function in every vital organ, and the rest of this stuff we don't necessarily need. It's almost like it's preparing for a famine, if that makes sense. So then you get into this situation of where you have this trifecta of inflammation, because when there's too much cortisol, the body has rampant inflammation. Remember, I mentioned to you guys in my story before, I had a chronic inflammatory condition in my eyes that I was literally putting steroid drops in around the clock. Your hormones get out of balance. So with inflammation, you may experience things like fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, acne, allergies, and autoimmune diseases in particular. Your hormones, are going to be affected. We've already discussed that. But the other thing that's going to happen, and y'all, this truly was the missing key for me with Plexus, is that in all of the years that I had done all this work with I gotta get a drink of water real quick, sorry. With doctors, not one doctor had ever talked to me about my gut health. And so that really is, when we talk about our core products with Plexus, you're always going to hear us mention our triplex, which is our Slim, which is going to help to bring your body back into blood sugar balance. You cannot heal your adrenals. You cannot heal your thyroid. You cannot heal rampant inflammation if your blood sugar is out of control. Once your blood sugar begins to heal, that is going to have an impact on your hormones. Your hormones are going to automatically start to go back into homeostasis or balance, which is what we want. But the key to this whole thing is your gut. So if the gut is unbalanced, you're going to have bloating, you're going to have constipation, and you're also going to have issues with an imbalance in healthy gut flora and bad bacteria like candida. So that is a key component to healing all aspects of your hormone conditions. 20% of your thyroid thyroid function depends upon your gut bacteria and the body's ability to convert thyroid hormone there. So in terms of the products, because I think now everybody's like, okay, lady, yeah, we get it. Just tell us, what did you use? What did you take that made you better? Okay. So yes, I am on thyroid replacement hormone, and I will remain on thyroid replacement hormone because so much damage was done to my thyroid that it just doesn't make enough thyroid on its own anymore. So I take a prescription medication for that. I take our triplex products, which are the Slim. I actually do the Slim Hunger Control. Again, we were talking about the fiber component earlier. It has 8 milligrams of fiber in it, and so that really helps with that digestion, with that gut flora and bacteria. But Slim Microbiome works for many others as well. My body just happens to respond really well to hunger control. I take Probio 5 so that I keep my gut flora in healthy balance. I am eliminating bad bacteria because that probiotic also contains proteolytic enzymes. And then I do the Probio 5 so that I keep my system regular, along with healthy daily fiber intake, as Carrie mentioned. And then our X Factor multivitamin, our omegas, and like I said, our probiotics. So that's really my trifecta. It's the triplex with the addition of, and of course Metaburn, because I had the exact same experience as Carrie, where I had gone through a very stressful season. I'd put on a lot of weight around my middle, and when I started Metaburn and I increased the fiber in my diet, I experienced the same results that she did.
Thank you so much, Rach. And thank you, Carrie, too. And thanks to everyone for listening. We hope that you can find balance. We hope that you can find hope. And more than anything, just a great community of people who have all struggled with hormone health. And we wish you both health and happiness.